Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Lindsay, your sober coach and the founder of Feel Good AF. This is about how you can live a life that you feel proud of, and alcohol just doesn't make sense anymore. So if you're new here, I am so glad that you are taking some time out of your day to listen to Feel Good Alcohol Free, because it means that you really care about yourself and your well-being, and you're taking the actions to make changes in your life. And this can be really hard and it can feel really scary sometimes. So I'm here to alleviate some of that and turn this into a journey that actually feels good and makes you just excited about not drinking anymore. So today we're going to talk a little bit about a topic of mine that this was like in my repertoire for so long. When I was trying to moderate my drinking, I would always just tell myself, I'm just going to have a glass of wine at dinner. And so we're going to talk about the lie behind just one glass. You know, this goes into the rules that we create for ourselves around drinking after this like quest to be a moderate drinker, or sometimes I refer to this as I just want to drink like a normal person. And first of all, there's no such thing. Normal is relative. What's normal to you might not be normal to somebody else. And this whole idea of drinking moderately is something that I want you to just start to forget about, if I'm being honest. We're not talking about having more discipline yet, though I am going to teach you how to build discipline in your life if you stick around long enough. And always, if you step into my world, what you can expect is to always be met with love, safety, and belonging in this journey, because this is about when we can open up and we can share what's going on with ourselves and have someone hear you and see you, then your shame is going to die and you are going to be ready to lift yourself up out of any type of shame or regret that you're swimming in right now over your drinking. And you're going to be able to move on. I promise you. That's what this is about. It's about getting that ugly part behind you and then breaking the pattern. Okay, let's talk about this just one glass. We're going to get into it, because I know that you've said it before. I used to say it practically every single day, and it was a big fat lie. It was a way for me to kind of like give myself a little permission to drink, like, oh, well, it's okay, I'm just going to have one glass. But we all know that that's where it starts. And there's plenty of previous episodes that I've created around, you know, the dopamine spike, like why it's easier to say no to the first glass than it is the second and third. So you can kind of go back and listen to former episodes about that. But there's this thing where we very much believe that drinking or having a glass of wine is our form to relax and to unwind. And the reason why you believe that is because you've seen it. And we grow up with it. Maybe your parents would have a few drinks after work every single night, or, you know, just most nights. Or we hear phrases like, oh boy, that's going to take a bottle of wine, or I need a glass of wine for this. And that's the mindset piece that we need to switch, because what happens is when we are successful, you're taking care of everything and you're managing everything. You still are able to rationalize drinking because you're still getting everything done. And so what I want you to start to see here is you can feel good, you can feel your best and manage all of these things without using alcohol to unwind at the end of the day. Because really what has started to happen, you're still getting everything done, you're functioning at a very high level. And what's happened is that you're just used to operating at 40, 50%. And when we say, I'm going to just have one glass of wine, and then 20 minutes later, we immediately start to get this little crash of dopamine. Our dopamine crashes, and then we're going to pour a second glass, and then it turns into a third, and then it turns into the bottle, just finishing the bottle off. This is how our confidence starts to tank in ourselves. This is how that inner integrity that we want to have, like that trust in ourselves, goes away because we suddenly are like, oh my gosh, I can't even just have one glass. Like, what is wrong with me? I did it again. And all of these thoughts come in to these shame spirals. And so that's why our confidence starts to go down. And we start getting used to just living like this. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to live like this. Once alcohol gets out of your system, so many amazing things start to happen. And I want to remind you, you already know what it's like to live while drinking. What would it feel like to just try doing things without drinking and see what that's like? I felt like in my own journey that that was what I really owed to myself. And I didn't want to give up until I was able to experience for myself what being alcohol free was like. And over time, my brain collected enough evidence to say, yeah, well, we don't need that anymore. I know that we're going to be really focused on the just one and how it changes your thoughts, not just your whole night. There's so many examples that I can go through of times where I said I was going to have just one glass and my night did not end the way that I wanted it to. For example, I used to have, well, they're still my friends, but I had this group of girlfriends where at the time we worked together and we would leave work almost every Wednesday, it seemed like, for a long time. But often on Wednesdays, we had something that we called Wednesday Wind Down, where when the clock struck 5, we were out the door on that day. And heading to one of our favorite places, pretty nearby our office. And we would often say like, okay, tonight we're just going to have one glass of wine. And then like, we're all busy. We've got stuff to do. Let's just make this one a quick drink. And I am going to tell you that it was never that way. It never went that way. And it always led to ordering more bottles, going out to dinner, many times having to take an Uber home, telling my husband I would be home for dinner and then 2 hours later texting him and saying, oh, things didn't go that way. You're on your own. Like, go heat up leftovers or something. And so these are all broken promises. And sometimes they were broken promises to my husband. Sometimes they were broken promises to me. But then the emotional cost of this is really what is so important. This wasn't just, oh, I had a few too many drinks with my girlfriends on a Wednesday night. This is what leads to the 3 a.m. wake up on Thursday morning. The broken promise of not only the broken promise of how I was going to just have one glass of wine, but now that workout that I was planning on, that's in the gutter. Like, it's gone. I'm not doing it. And now I have to just face the reality of this drained self-trust because of these types of actions that I took over and over again. The lie of just one glass totally chipped away at my self-trust because I never was able to have just one glass. And if I did, it was painful and difficult. So this is what I mean where there's like this tension between the woman that you are today and the woman that you know you could be or that you want to be. And for me, I spent a lot of wasted energy trying to be the woman who could have just one glass. And that was the wrong goal. Like, that was really my realization throughout my journey was I am wasting so much energy trying to have just one glass of wine. And like, is there even a point of having one glass of wine? Because it's never going to give me what I desire. And what I desired was steadiness. I wanted the noise in my head to quiet down. I wanted to not ruminate over things. I wanted to be able to process my day and the problems I was faced with and then solve them. And no glass of wine that always turns into a bottle of wine is going to help you do that. Like, it just isn't. I'm going to get into a little bit of the science around this spiral that saying I'm just going to have one glass gets us into. So, first of all, alcohols, the science behind it, what it does is it's going to give us the dopamine that we're searching for. So, we're searching for this dopamine throughout the day, and the stress is kind of pulling from it, and it's a relief that we're getting. And so dopamine is setting the reward trap, and it's making us crave more and actually enjoy the wine less, because at this point, once we have a glass of wine, it's going to give us that dopamine spike. And then when the dopamine starts to die down about 20, 25 minutes after that first glass, we're craving more. And now it's not even really the wine that we want, it's the dopamine spike that we want. So now GABA and glutamate, this is something that is going to sedate the brain. This is what causes the prefrontal cortex to shut down. So what's happening now? We have put our nervous system into this cycle of sedation and then a stress spike. And that causes that 3 a.m. wake up that we all are very familiar with and we very much hate. So now the alcohol is disrupting our hormones. It's disrupting our estrogen, cortisol, serotonin, and melatonin. Alcohol is not the thing to drink if you are saying to yourself, I'm so tired, I just need a good night's sleep, because it completely trashes our sleep. There is nothing about alcohol that should be in the same conversation with getting a good night's sleep. Sedation is not the same as sleep. Passing out quickly is not the same as getting a good night's sleep. Because when we wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, that means that our body is completely freaking out over everything that it's lacking in that moment. And we're also dehydrated, and then our mind starts to spiral into the, oh my God, I did it again. And you just are going to toss and turn until that alarm goes off. And nobody wants that. Nobody. So the other thing that this spiral causes is a big identity erosion. Over time, you start to question who you are. If you're like me, I was drinking for years. I mean, I started drinking in high school. Like, let's be honest here, parties and Friday night lights, all that stuff. And then in college, it just became like one binge drinking weekend after another. And so this starts then. Your relationship with alcohol might change after college a little bit, but it still is happening. It still is building, and it's actually changing into more of that relaxation mode at some points, maybe like that weekday drinking. Maybe some of it is social, like, oh, maybe you go out with clients now, or you're getting to know new coworkers. And so it's always about this like happy hour and dinners out. And these are patterns that you're building. And eventually they just turn into something that you're like, oh, this is all I'm relying on now to relieve stress. What happened to all of my good habits? We don't want to hate that version of ourselves. We need to have compassion over that version of ourselves. But when you start questioning who you are, that can feel really heavy, and it can feel sad at times. I was definitely at this point where I thought, oh my God, all I do is come home from work and pour a glass of wine every day. And on the weekends, I barely want to do anything anymore except like cross little things off my to-do list. And really, I only wanted to do those so that I could tell myself I earned all of the alcohol that I was going to drink that weekend. And, oftentimes on a Saturday afternoon, I could be found either on my couch, or if it was nice out, on my patio, already sipping on my wine as early as like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I would, bounce through a couple bottles of Sauvignon Blanc, and then I would open up an IPA. It just was like so much alcohol. And I would always be telling myself how I do so much. I go to work, I accomplish all these things, and I deserve this. but I wasn't actually taking care of myself. And I started to kind of see that for what it was. I started to see, like, do other people spend their whole entire weekend, quote unquote, relaxing by drinking alcohol alone? Or, I mean, my husband was there a lot of the time, but there was just, I just saw how the socializing was actually happening less. And when it was happening, I wasn't excited about it. I was more concerned about drinking while socializing and when and what the alcohol involvement was. And so this is what I mean by, like, you start to question who you are. And it's also what I mean when I say, right now, maybe your identity feels like it revolves around alcohol. I know that mine certainly did. And if that's you, I want you to know that it doesn't have to. It also is not something that you have to, like, scream out to the rooftops about. It's probably something really private to you. And that's really normal. It was for me. It was kind of this thing that I just woke up one day and was like, well, I know that I'm tired of feeling like this, but I couldn't figure out, like, I don't know what life would even look like not drinking. And that's where a lot of our rules are born from. They start with these moderation rules because we really believe that we have to keep alcohol in our lives at some capacity. And that's okay if, that's where you're at right now. I was there too. I just want you to start to see that whatever your identity is today and how you're kind of looking at it, maybe you feel like your whole identity revolves around what type of wine you're going to bring to the dinner, or your identity revolves around relaxing after work with wine, and that's okay. But really start to ask yourself, is this the identity that I want? And how is it serving me? Versus, who do I really want to become? How do I want to be living? Because they're probably two different things. They were for me, and they were for the women who hire me. The women who hire me are sick and tired of feeling this way and being stuck in this trap, and they want to change. But we're so in our own little world and the way that we see things that we need this new perspective. We need to be shown something different so that we can start to process what that might look in our lives and then move through it and say, like, okay, I understand fundamentally that I can change, but it feels so big and so daunting that I don't even know how to do it. And so that's where I come in with the women who hire me, because these are women who are high achieving. They run households. Oftentimes they are the breadwinner in the family. And they are like, why can I not figure out, like, 5 easy strategies that actually work in my own life? And once I listen to you for about 10 minutes, I am going to be able to give you 3 to 5 things to implement in your day-to-day life so that you break these loops. So, okay, let's talk about the real reason that you keep saying yes to drinking. Okay. That's the $1,000,000 question, I think. Like, why do I keep saying yes to something I keep telling myself I don't want? When we think about trying to moderate our drinking, or, that just one glass, what it equals is these little micro negotiations that we keep making with ourselves that drain our energy. And so what happens is we're in this identity loop, and it goes like this. It's like, we drink and then we immediately feel guilty because maybe you said you weren't even going to drink that day, but it's like, oh, here I am. And so we drink and then we have guilt over the drinking because, we broke something. And then we create a rule and we're like, okay, well, I'm just going to have this one glass. But then we override that rule because that's how alcohol works. Alcohol makes it, prefrontal cortex, decision-making ability, like, it throws all of that out the window. And then we repeat it. Here's what I want you to know. This is a pattern that you just need to break. And it's very normal. It's how alcohol works, but you can break it. So I am going to move into telling you a little bit about one of my clients named Sarah. Okay, this is going to sort of paint a picture. And this is, Sarah was very similar to me. She does have children, so that is probably a big difference. But let's talk about her. She is a project manager at a global tech company. She runs a massive team across 3 continents. She has two kids under 10 years old, and her husband travels for work. So what happens is she gets into these sort of habits and these cycles where, particularly when her husband is out of town and she's sort of jockeying all these things on her own, that she needs to drink to take the edge off. It's this reward loop. So she wasn't drinking every single night, but she was drinking most nights. And so every morning she'd make this promise, I'm not going to drink tonight. But then 6:15, it's like the kids are doing their thing. They need dinner. They need downtime. They need a lot to come together to get from dinner time to bedtime. And she would start pouring that glass of wine. And this isn't because she wanted to just feel, buzzed or something. It's because she was desperate to stop thinking. It's like the mind doesn't shut off when we have all of the things from the day leaking into us, into our evening, and then young children to take care of all on your own. And she told me that she had been draining energy all day. Like she just felt like the energy wasn't in the right focus. And it's not just physically, but it's mentally. She's just kind of like keeping up with all these negotiations, the self editing, the internal conversations that nobody else can hear. Nobody else knows what we're truly going through and what we're thinking. And so Sarah stepped into Feel Good AF and we worked one-on-one together. And I did not give her a rule book. And this is the thing, when I meet with women, everything that we talk about is very specific to you. And so we really looked at how she was living today and what her identity looked like from, the inside and maybe an outside perspective, because usually there's two different things. There's the way we see ourselves and there's the way others see ourselves. And so now we shift that into, who do you want to become? How do you want to be living? And we take that and build that new identity. Now, she's been sober for over 6 months, and it's not because she's like trying to remind herself, like, maybe I could just have one glass, because she already has decided that just one glass isn't worth it. She feels good. So remember, a little earlier, I was mentioning we get used to operating at this lower level. Alcohol is just depleting us, and we get used to operating at 40, 50%. We're just going through the motions. We're getting everything done. But when she got alcohol out of her system, she just finally felt so good that she didn't want to go back. And this was very similar to my own journey. She gave herself the chance to experience all of these things. And it wasn't easy every day. There are these moments where it does feel really hard, but when she was able to remember, like, this is not the version of myself that I want to be, and I owe it to myself to experience these things without alcohol, that was the commitment that she went through. And now she doesn't wake up dragging. She's sharper in meetings. She's more patient with her children, and she's feeling good and really relaxed in her own skin. She doesn't negotiate with herself. Her decisions are final, and this has given her the energy that she was really craving. And that is the cost when we try to moderate. So much mental energy burned out on deciding when, where, and how much we're going to drink. And when we go back on all of our moderation rules, our self-trust, our inner integrity is just slipping away. It's like just going down the drain. Now is the time to say, part of my new identity is I am a woman of my effing word. Like, become a woman of your effing word. That was the biggest thing for me in my journey. I was so sick of just like saying I was going to do one thing and doing the opposite. It's total BS. If we tell someone else we're going to do something, we do it, but we don't when it comes to telling ourselves. And so this is the identity. This is the shift that brings that inner integrity, that self-love, that thing that is going to make you feel good. You're going to feel restored. You're going to feel like you have a lot of time in your day because there is no more noise of thinking about drinking, even when you're not drinking. And you're going to believe that this is how it's going to be. You're going to believe, I don't need alcohol anymore. There's no more tug of war. You are going to be high functioning and feeling amazing while you do it, instead of being high functioning, but out of alignment with who it is that you want to be. And so here's what I want you to think about. You are not cutting something out. You're not losing anything. It's about taking all of the things that you want in your life and implementing them, implementing the identity that you want, all the things that you dream about doing, all the things that you say you want to do, but then never get to. When you get that alcohol out of your system, you're going to do all the things. You're going to have bandwidth to lead, connect, and show up. And you're no longer stuck in any type of tug of war with whether or not you're going to drink. You're just running a new pattern. And the pattern you're in now, what's stopping you is that you need to disrupt it. You need to say, I need to implement strategies based on the version of myself that I want to become to disrupt this pattern of who I am today. Because you're going to just like step into this new higher version of yourself, and your new identity doesn't have to be sober. Like, that's the other thing. I want you to know your identity doesn't have to be drinker or non-drinker. Like, those two words don't need to exist in your identity. So, all right, that's Sarah. And that is how it can be you as well. I want you to know, like, you are more than capable of being just like Sarah, being just like me. Here's the thing. Right now, maybe you believe that you can't quit drinking. Maybe you believe that there are a lot of reasons why alcohol needs to stay in your life. This could be, well, every family gathering involves alcohol. I can't visit my family without drinking, or the holidays are coming up. I mean, we're in October here, so the holiday season is upon us, and how am I going to not drink during the holidays? So we have these beliefs. So the first thing is, when we are looking at identity driven change, because that's what this is. We're not saying, I want to just go from being a drinker to a non-drinker. We're saying, I want identity-driven change that's going to give me the life that I want, the life that I deserve. So what you're going to do is think about, okay, I need to rewire my identity, and then the behavior that I want to be exhibiting is going to follow. And so here's what I want you to look at. Are the actions that you take on a daily basis aligned with the version of yourself that you want to become? And I'll give you an example. This is the worst. This makes me feel like garbage, actually, to talk about, because I lacked self-compassion for so long, and particularly in this area. I have always really been somebody who enjoyed working out in the mornings versus after work. And so the identity that I wanted was somebody who exercised in the morning and then, just like skipped into her work day. I mean, I don't know if I do that now. Skipping might be a little not quite the visual that I bring into my workday, but I'm definitely like, I'm ready for it every day. And so, but I wanted that thing. I wanted to be the one who worked out before work, made her smoothie and got in the car and took off. But my actions were not aligned with a version of any person who does that. So drinking a bottle of wine and telling myself, oh, I have a run at 6 a.m. with the girls tomorrow. I'm just going to have one glass. Oh my God. I was not only disappointing myself anymore, I was letting down my friends. Because, like, what friend wants to wake up at 6 a.m. or get to a destination at 6 a.m. to find out that you're not going to meet them? Oh, it's the worst. I felt so terrible every single time I did something like that. So my actions of even just having a glass of wine were not aligned with the woman who met her girlfriends to drink the next day. So I had to really look at a person who wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning. What does she do the night before? Well, let me tell you, not drink a bottle of wine, that's for sure. So this was something that I really grappled with for a long time. Like, okay, I know what I need to be doing. How do I do that? Because it was so hard to not have that glass of wine. So I had to continue reverse engineering my actions and finding the actions that were aligned with the woman who woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So rewiring my identity, the behavior follows. Okay. Now, the next thing is by doing this, my nervous system is starting to become grounded. If you're like me, you are drinking to relieve stress. And we've already talked about earlier how alcohol is not a way to relieve stress. It actually is disrupting our nervous system, it's not regulating our nervous system. So, we need to become grounded. We need to introduce activities that help regulate our nervous system. And I mean, there's lots of ways that you can do this. You can walk for 10 minutes after work. A lot of the work that I do with women is around finding decompression techniques that help them move on and not feel like they need to pour a glass of wine to relax, because so much of this is that we are not taking even 10 or 15 minutes to ourselves after, a stressful workday to decompress. And all of this is just carrying right into the evening. And we're showing up stressed out, not taking care of ourselves. And we're not able to show up for our family or ourselves the way that we want. And so what happens is we pour that glass of wine that never is just one and turns into a bottle, and then we're just sedating ourselves in the evening. We're quieting the mind for maybe a temporary moment before it turns into that overthinking and ruminating, and then we kind of pass out. And when you take that away and you bring in tactics that will support your nervous system so that you can become more grounded, there's no need. There's simply no need. You're not even going to think about alcohol as a solution anymore, because you are going to begin practicing these things that are in your new identity. The fastest way to become the version of yourself you want to be is to live as if you're her. You have to live as if you're already her. You are practicing not drinking. You are practicing tools that help you balance and become grounded. That's relaxation. Now, the next thing, this is a big one, and this is the way we talk to ourselves, our inner voice, that inner critic. And I mentioned this earlier in the episode around how I had no compassion for myself. I really had none. I beat myself up, and I know that you do too if you listen, because this is one of the biggest things that I talk with the women who hire me about is changing that rhetoric. And this is also something that doesn't happen overnight, but we have to treat ourselves like we're our best friend, not a critic. And being critical of ourselves and others isn't going to make us feel good. And our goal is to feel good AF, right? Like, I mean, if you're new here, I don't know if you know what the AF in my work means, but you can be the judge of that. And maybe you use it interchangeably, but you're going to feel good AF, good alcohol free. Like, it's all going to be good. And when we talk to ourselves in a way that says, you know what, this is what growth feels like. Maybe last night, my actions didn't align with who I want to be. And that's okay. I know that I'm getting there because I'm growing. Maybe, I had a long sober stretch and I just had a little lapse of judgment last night, and I let the old pattern creep in, and that's okay. I'm ready to show up again for myself today. Now, notice how saying that to yourself, maybe you've had a couple weeks of not drinking, you're feeling really good, and yesterday was a really bad day, and you told yourself just one glass, but it turned into a bottle. And so today you wake up and all of a sudden, you have this like shame kind of happening. But this is the opportunity for you to flag that inner voice and not use the same rhetoric, because remember, we're breaking patterns. So a pattern that we need to break is the way we talk to ourselves. It feels different to remind yourself how you're growing and, yesterday maybe I just didn't show up or make a decision or an action that is how I want to be living, and that's okay. I'm ready to move on from that. Practice, not perfect, right? Practice. I'm practicing not drinking. And I'm ready to get back out there today, because the most important thing about building new patterns, if we make a little slip into the old pattern, is to not stay in the old pattern more than that day. We cannot do it twice. That's what I always say in my group. Just don't do it twice. It's okay if you have a slip, just don't do it twice. So no criticism, because that feels better than being like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. How could I have done this to myself again? No. Would you say that to your friend or your partner? You would never say that to somebody. How could you do this again? Like we don't talk like that to other people, and so we certainly are not going to talk to ourselves like that. Now, this is not something new. I talk about this a lot, but while I do think it's important to look at your number of days alcohol free, and there's a couple different ways to look at them. Use days that you haven't drank as a comparison. Like, okay, have I drank less this month than I did last month? Have I drank less this week than I did last week? Have I drank less this, year compared to last year? And use it like that. Or also, like, okay, if I'm looking at physiological and physical changes that I can expect from days alcohol free, then, day counting is kind of important, because, it takes roughly 8 days for the alcohol to get out of your system. And usually around that time period is when you start to sleep a lot better. So, from that standpoint, it might be helpful to be like, oh yeah, how many days have I not drank? But you don't need, what is so important to me is, like, don't count days as your key metric of success. This is not a KPI that if it's broken, you're doing a bad job. I want you to track moments that you're in alignment instead. I want you to track the actions that are aligned with the version of yourself that you're trying to become instead. Sure, number of days, I mean, that's the goal. The goal is to be alcohol free. So sure, eventually you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm 1,000 days alcohol free. And you're not even going to remember the last time you looked at the calendar and said something like that. Or maybe you're going to say, oh my gosh, I'm 5 days alcohol free. That's amazing. What have I accomplished? What are the decisions and the actions that I took this week to become 5 days alcohol free? That's where I want you to focus. And so this is what this might look like. It kind of goes back to my example before of the version, the decision, the action of me drinking a glass of wine that always inevitably turned into a bottle is not aligned with the version of myself that I wanted to become, which was the woman who woke up and met her girlfriends to go running in the morning. So what I started to measure success as, what are the actions that I'm taking in the evening to be the woman who meets her girlfriends for a run at 6:00 a.m. Those actions might look like, when I come home from work, I immediately make myself a non-alcoholic drink and I sit down and I reflect on my day. Now, maybe you're thinking, Lindsay, that sounds luxurious. I don't have 15 minutes to sit down and reflect on my day. This is actually part of my genius. Sitting down with women and actually identifying when you have 15 minutes and how to make 15 minutes from yourself. Because really, when we say, I don't have 10 minutes, I don't have 15 minutes, it really just means that we need to rearrange a few things and we need to make this the priority. We have to make our actions the priority. Because if you're drinking wine every night, I already know that you have 15 minutes to do this. Because trust me, when you get alcohol out of the picture, you're going to have a lot more time on your hands. I promise you this. Like, I promise you this. So, okay, so the action might be, I get home and I make my non-alcoholic drink. And this doesn't have to be fancy. I'm talking about like pouring a seltzer into a glass, or, sometimes I put a little lemon juice in it, or my favorite, which everyone asks me this all the time, but my favorite drink is I just pour my seltzer and I pour like some kombucha in it. My favorite is GT's ginger ale. I always have it. And I do like a little 50-50, 1-to-1 ratio there. And it's so good. So I drink that and I just spend this 15 minutes of quiet time and I plan out how I want to spend the rest of my evening. Or I think about a few conversations that day that maybe didn't go very well and where I want to put my attention the next day in my work day. What are some things that I maybe didn't get to that day so that I'm able to just close out my work part of my life and move into my evening time with my husband, time with my dog, my fur kid here. And so let's think about that action. Just that one action is helping me stay aligned with the woman who goes for the run at 6 a.m. So it's my swap, because normally the old me was pouring a glass of wine and using that to decompress, which never really went well. It's a whole other episode. So we think about how our actions align with our goal. And if it's not aligned with our goal, what do we need to change? I want you to think about your vision. I want you to think about who it is that you want to become and how you're going to get there. And if you don't know how you're going to get there, if you are still sitting here thinking, Lindsay, this sounds amazing, but I still don't know how to get there, you always have the option to book a discovery call with me. If you want to know what it's like to work with me and to actually put this thing behind you for good in a way that feels better, like, you can set up a discovery call with me. The link is in the show notes. You can always go to my website and explore things about my program. If that feels better to you than talking to me, you can send me an email. We can start a conversation about how we get you to do all of these identity-driven changes that I talked about today and implement them in your life. Because I do realize that I can sit here from where I'm at today and explain this to you, and for you to be hearing it and have it still feel impossible or just really far away or out of reach. Like, I get that because I was in your seat. I had many years where I listened to the sober podcasts, I read the Quit Lit, and I wasn't sure how to implement it into my life. So I just want you to know that I'm always here for you. You don't have to be always the one listening on the other end. I want to listen to you. So set up a call with me, send me an email, and that's always available to you. Okay. Okay. Identity driven change sounds great, Lindsay, but I don't even know what my identity is. Well, what are some of the components of the woman that you want to become? Do you want to wake up and just feel a little sense of peace? Do you want to come home from work and feel a sense of peace? Do you want more energy? Do you want more focus? Do you want to be the woman who comes home from work, drops her bag in, hugs her kids, and plays on the floor with them and feels present and in the moment with them? Do you want to be the woman who comes home from work, drops her bags on the floor, kicks off her shoes, and changes into her sneakers and goes for a long walk with her dog or her husband? Do you want to be sitting at a dinner table at night with your partner and actually having a meaningful conversation and not feeling distracted by a phone or the need to pour a glass of wine to relax or have that downtime? Do you want to be the woman who stops creating distance between her and her partner and starts forming a new bond, maybe a new relationship? Do you want to be the woman where alcohol is irrelevant? That's what I wanted so desperately, and I didn't know how to get there for so long. And I promise you it will happen in your life. I've worked with many women who are, over a year alcohol free now, over a year and a half. One of the women that I worked with is about to hit her 2-year alcohol free anniversary. And it's like, seeing the things that she accomplished is so big for me. It makes me feel so good because I know that just like you, these women wanted that desperately and didn't know how to do it. And our work together brought them there faster and less pain. Like, we want this to be easier. And I promise you, you can do this where it feels easier. It's not going to always be easy, but it can feel easier. And it can also be a thing that isn't part of your identity, because alcohol is going to be irrelevant. Just like you don't need to identify as sober is the thing. You really don't. Okay, so I want you to remember this isn't about subtraction. When we think about our identity and maybe how it might revolve a little bit around alcohol, or maybe a lot around alcohol, it's not about just removing it. It's about reclaiming more. It's about saying, these are the elements that I want to be living. Like, this is what I want to be part of my life. I want this rich, full life, and I'm going to go get it. I am open to experiencing things without alcohol just to see what's possible. I want to act as an observer. You already know what it feels like to drink. You already know what it feels like to wake up in the morning after drinking. You owe it to yourself to try to wake up every single day without feeling the way that you feel now and reclaiming everything that you want. Okay, you know my program, you know Feel Good AF is always here for you. Feel Good AF is 3 months. You can work with me privately, you can work in my group. It's open. You can book a discovery call, you can send an email, you can even just go to my website and sign up. But if you are wondering how it fits in your life and you've been carrying all of this stuff, this junk of alcohol in silence, it's time for you to stop negotiating and start becoming the version of you that you know you're capable of being. I know that it feels out of reach. I was there too, just like the women who come and work with me. They thought it was out of reach as well. But now they're getting there because I know that when you commit to doing this work and you commit to showing up for yourself in the way that you want your identity to be, your success will be inevitable. It will. So, all right. Thank you so much for being here, whether you've been around for a while or whether you're new here. It matters. And it means the world to me that you want to spend this time with me. So don't be a stranger. You know so much about me. I want to learn about you. Send me that DM, send me an email. Let's get to know each other. And if this episode resonated and supported you, it would mean the world to me if you rated it, reviewed it, and share it with somebody. Share it with that friend of yours who you go out with after work and it's never just one glass, because taking it from just one glass to not even thinking about alcohol anymore is really the goal here. Send it to that friend and tell them, you know what, maybe we should go out for mocktails, because every time we go out, it's never just one glass. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any more episodes. You are seeking clarity in this journey. You are getting there. No more day counting, no white knuckling your way through anything. Measure your actions that help you align with the version of yourself that you want to be. And that is how you are going to quit drinking. Okay, you're capable. I believe in you. Thank you so much. I will see you next time.